The lunar module computer had 200 inputs and outputs. Imagine if you connected 200 items to your laptop. As Armstrong and Aldrin are flying to the surface of the moon, the main computer alarm goes off. This is not like the seatbelt pinger in your car. This is like the car alarm in your car, except inside. It is a very serious warning moment, not to be ignored. In fact, the computer's alarm went off, the spaceship alarm went off 5 times in the space of 4 minutes. It was having a problem, and it wanted everyone to pay attention. And the question was, what was going wrong? Could they continue to fly to the surface of the moon, or did they need to abort the mission? And of course, there was no go-around. There wasn't much time to make a decision. 120 seconds of extra fuel was all they had. $20 billion was at stake, and the whole world was watching. There was one guy in mission control who knew what was going on, a man named Jack Garman. He was a spaceflight veteran, 3 years out of the University of Michigan. And he had a handwritten list of computer codes, here it is, that he had prepared in advance just in case there was a computer alarm. It was 1969. A computer alarm meant that 4 digits appeared on the screen of the computer. You had to know what the 4 digits meant. Here's what was happening to that computer. The computer was receiving a whole stream of irrelevant information. It was actually receiving information from the radar they used to fly away from the moon. It wasn't supposed to be receiving that information at that moment they were flying to the moon. The computer in 1969 was smart enough to know that the rendezvous radar data, the ascent radar data, was completely irrelevant. But that data was overloading the computer. It was giving it more work than it could do. Rather than stop working, it was dumping the irrelevant data, and then actually it had to restart itself and continuing to fly to the surface of the moon. And then it sounded the computer alarm. The computer alarm meant, hey, there is something seriously wrong with your spaceship. I, the computer, on the other hand, am fine. I'm going to continue to fly to the moon, but you ought to look into this other problem. And Jack Garman, age 25, knew from his handwritten list of computer codes that that's exactly what was going on. Jack Garman is the guy on the right, the young guy. And he was in a room inside mission control. He told his boss in the main mission control we're all familiar with, you are go to land, don't worry about that alarm. They shouted up to the astronauts, go to land. And then the next 4 times the alarm went off, Jack Garman could hear in his headset, straight from the cabin of the spacecraft headed for the moon, he could hear the alarm going off, and he didn't wait to be consulted. He simply shouted, same type of alarm, go to land. And that's how we come to have, this by the way is what the inside of the lunar module cockpit looked like, a little different than what Han Solo flies, and that is Buzz Aldrin. This is just a few hours before they headed for the moon. That's how we come to have 159 seconds after the last alarm, that famous exchange from the surface of the moon. Houston, Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed. And back from Houston, the somewhat mysterious response, if you were listening, Roger, Tranquility Base, you got a lot of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. The Apollo flight computer saved the moon landing. It was the size of a small briefcase, and even in 1969, it understood exactly what was going on. It was making decisions much faster than Armstrong and Aldrin ever could, much faster than mission control could. At one point, when Armstrong and Aldrin were just 1,000 feet off the surface of the moon, all the computer screens in the spaceship went blank, dark, for 10 long seconds. Imagine being in one of the legendary Dallas, Texas clover leaves going 60 miles an hour at 11 o'clock at night, and your dashboard goes blank for 10 long seconds. Neil Armstrong said it wasn't clear the computer was ever going to come back to life. But in fact, the computer was doing just what it was supposed to do. At that moment, it did not have enough computing power to fly the spaceship and illuminate the displays. And it knew enough to stop illuminating the displays and keep flying the spaceship. The computer was doing 85,000 calculations a second, which sounds pretty good. If you have an iPhone on you right now, It can do 5 trillion calculations a second. It would take the Apollo flight computer, the computer that flew us to the moon, 681 days to do the work your iPhone can do in 1 second. In fact, the Apollo flight computers had less brain power than your microwave oven. The marvel isn't that they were so primitive. The marvel is that the engineers and scientists at MIT and NASA got so much work from them. When we started going to the moon, a small computer, a single small computer, was the size of 4 refrigerators lined up next to each other. You couldn't, of course, even send 1 refrigerator to the moon. And this computer, the size of a small suitcase, ended up being faster than that much larger computer.